50 to 80 years. So this is an amazing time. Children that are growing up now. And over the next 25 to 30 years will be the ones that have the most influence. 85% of humankind will be living in emerging markets within 10 years. So if you live like we do in a developed nation, think some really radical thoughts about life in 2030. The only markets worth investing in for many industries will be emerging markets. Emerging markets means, China, of course, I guess they still consider China to be an emerging market, although I feel it really has emerged already. India and other places in the world will be emerging markets. And 85% of humans will be living in one of those emerging markets, and America and Europe will be declining, as I think we're seeing already, as global players. There'll be over 1 billion new middle-class consumers in these emerging markets, and this will be a result of better education and economic growth. And as we've seen, China and India already being transformed by this, and they'll be less dependent on exports. To countries like ours. So that will be a change. There'll be a growth in life expectancy, for sure. So basic life expectancy right now is estimated, I think, somewhere in the 70s for most people. But if you think about it, most people are living way beyond that already. And even in the poorest nations, life expectancy is growing pretty fast. And with all the new technology and access to healthcare, by 2040, we will know all the secrets of non-aging animals, of which there are many types. And they'll be finding new ways to slow down aging. And you can expect that probably the wealthiest among us will have the most access to that kind of technology. There'll be growth in global trade and corporate giants. We've already seen that. We've already seen huge consolidations and mergers of companies. And right now we're in a period of sort of pullback from the whole global trade idea, which is why we have things going on like Brexit and things that are like the tariff wars and such that the Trump administration is involved in. But as we can see, they're not going very well. And in many cases, they're causing more harm than good. And while the understandable desire to pull back from this is, as I say, understandable, it's not going to work. And they're going to find themselves having to do this anyway. So by 2050, there will be only 2 or 3 major airline manufacturers. I think there are now. 2 or 3 global mobile or computer operating systems, and about 10 mega-sized pharma companies, and less than 5 major groups of car manufacturers. There will be, of course, the Internet of Things, which is already starting, cloud computing. This is all going to accelerate global automation. This is a trend that's been accelerating for many, many years, but there will be still job creation, mostly in service industries. And this will allow us, if you want to take the positive view of it, we as people can find more creative and personal ways to improve quality of life. On the negative side, automation can have a difficult effect when if you get caught in a system that goes awry. And humans aren't involved in that. There's not a human that can make a decision. You just have a computer spitting out data and saying this or that or the other thing. It can really cause problems. I'll give you a good for instance about that. The other day, I went in to buy some groceries, and because I didn't have my debit card with me at the time, I wanted to cash a check. I'll write a check for the amount. And so, of course, when you do that, the grocer has to go through and check the information and make sure that they have all the right information, and it's a whole process. It's really, an old-fashioned process, but sometimes you have to do it. And this particular grocer had an automated system where they plugged in information, and that gave the grocer information back upon which they could make a decision whether to accept the check or not. And in my case, the person who was inputting the information got some of the information wrong. And that went to this place through the automated system, and it kicked it back out saying it doesn't match the information we have for this person. So based on that, the recommendation was that they not accept the check. So my check wasn't accepted. Of course, they don't tell you that in the store. They don't know. They just get a little tag, a little piece of paper that tells them they can't accept the check. So you have to go and talk to the people and get behind the computer that did this and find out why it happened. So that's what I had to do. And while those situations can be resolved, it's can be quite frustrating. So that's the downside to sort of automation. It would have been much easier if they could have just looked at the check, looked at me, checked my information, and and double-checked my information. Anyway, now here's some of the downside. We're seeing it already. So we have tribalism, and it's the most powerful force on Earth today. So we're seeing tribalism in politics, of course. We're seeing tribalism in communities in our country. The urban environments versus the rural environments. As a reaction to globalization and threats to local cultures, languages, and ways of life, this tribalism is going to grow and show itself in a variety of different ways, depending on where in the globe it is and what country and so forth and so on. Social media will feed on these things, and it will either undermine democracies or give rise to dictatorial leaders. So I think we're seeing that already. And most people in the world say they have spiritual beliefs, which influence how they think, feel, and live. And as communities become wealthier, people can spend more time focusing on the purpose or meaning in your life. So another long-term trend is focus on this and sustainability. As our world becomes increasingly populated, we're going to have a great deal of focus on sustainability. All right, so those are our future trends. Some of the positive ones. Now, here are some of the negative ones. And these are specifically for what may be ahead for us in 2019, rather than the longer-term trends. So, one of the expectations is an economic 9/11. It's like an economic version of the terrorist attack where the Twin Towers were attacked in 9/11. Well, this will be an economic 9/11, which is poised to strike and cause equity and market meltdowns worldwide, as many economies already are either in recession or headed for recession. And the question is, can it be stopped? Because of hacking, because of increasingly sophisticated ways of interacting with our global or our computer connectedness, someone can quite easily cause a terrorism attack of, financial markets. Sorry to be scary, but it's something that could happen. Another one is human waves, great migration trends, and populist movements, which we're seeing will dismantle entrenched governments, and there will be a push towards nationalism. What we're seeing in this country happening now is going to probably be happening in a lot of other places too. In America, Puritan 2.0, welcome to Puritan America. Watch what you say, how you say it, where you say it, and when you say it, and who you say it to. America and other countries will increasingly impose Puritan standards across all aspects of life. Well, I think we can see some of that too. Some people call that political correctness. Some people have a problem with that. I think that there is some benefit to being aware of how what you say affects other people, but I think it can be taken too far too. Censorship 2019, governments across the globe, regardless of what political doctrine they profess, in collusion with social media giants, will accelerate the censorship 2019 trend. But this can be circumvented by the creation of alternatives. Because of the innovation that we have going on, there'll be ways to work around that. Obesity will take its toll and bear a heavy price tag. But there are opportunities to address this epidemic, and we're trying to. We've seen so much focus on the causes of diabetes and the causes of obesity, things like sugar and high fructose corn syrup, all of those things which we now know to stay away from. Bye-bye boomers. Apparently the world is not prepared for the impact the bye-bye boomers trend is about to unleash. What they mean is that trend of the boomers, who have been sort of the dominant players in society, are heading into their golden years, and the boomers being the largest population of people, this will cause quite a strain on retirement incomes programs, things like Social Security and all of those other things. For many, it's going to be a time where there'll be more emphasis on how to survive rather than how to thrive, which is not what most people expected for their golden years, unfortunately. The cannabis industry will become a big player. What else here? The geeks have inherited the earth. And so we will see a reliance on digital communication, as we already have. And less of the old-fashioned way of interacting. Let's just call it that. And old brands of products that we've come to know and love will die away. We're already seeing things like